This is Betting Weekly Extra Time, Europa Conference League edition. You're with Dan Roebuck, RJ, Steve Wiss and Will White. The Conference League final between Olympiakos and Fiorentina. Of course, Steve, at the start of the campaign, Fiorentina are on about 6-7-1 shots. They were one of the favourites. Olympiakos, of course, dropped down from the Europa League, around about 40s, 50s when they came into this competition. So Fiorentina short priced when it comes to lifting the trophy at minus 155 and Olympiakos at plus 115. What are your thoughts on the two teams that go head-to-head for the final?
Well, good day, everyone. And, this is a really interesting final, I must say. I don't think anyone would have predicted this matchup, even at the start of the knockout rounds. Fiorentina, I suppose they are a side that have been probably on everyone's radar at some point in this tournament. We never actually backed them outright because of the price, really. But I don't think we ever discounted them. We knew they were one of the most likely sides to go deep in the competition. I actually said, didn't I, at the start of the season, I think it was more the Champions League shows, watch out for a resurgence of Greek and Turkish football. And I suppose based on that, maybe I've got to give myself a bit of credit that we've got a Greek finalist here with Olympiakos. A little bit disappointed that my outright Fenerbahce, of course, they beat them on penalties. It could have been Fenerbahce in this position instead. We will never know. But fair play to Olympiakos. And, this is, I think there's a bit of intrigue about this final.
It's an interesting one, RJ, isn't it? Because it's the first ever UEFA Club competition final for Olympiakos. I had to triple check that. I thought they might have snuck into a Cup Winners' Cup final years ago, but they haven't. Fiorentina, of course, lost last year's showpiece against West Ham. Does that count for anything that the Greek team are European final rookies and Fiorentina were literally here last year? Is that a factor when it comes to the pricing, do you think?
I think it has some merit, Dan. I think, being at this stage, the team largely, I think largely the same outside of a couple pieces that we'll mention, helps. They've been here before. Obviously, the big advantage here for Olympiakos is it's about 9 kilometers away from their home. Right, so it's essentially a home match for them. They're aiming to be, and you said their first competition. I think they're aiming to be the first Greek club actually to win a senior European title. Fiorentina is aiming to renew success from that heartbreak last year against West Ham, and I think this will be their first European title trophy since 1961, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, to your point, the numbers look about right, but I think it's tough to overlook the Olympiakos. Essentially a home match at next to even money and a little bit above. So we'll find out how it plays out, but this is a home match, so it's a little bit different than most European titles, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly signposting an RJ pick on Olympiakos, but we'll get to some selections for you shortly. Will, you're a ratings man. UEFA coefficient numbers, do you take any notice of these? Fiorentina 49, Olympiakos 45. Should we be lumping on the Greek team here with those numbers? How do you rate these two?
I think you can discuss the merits of European experience, and you can discuss the merits of this being a quote-unquote home game for Olympiakos, but those are debatable, both of those two factors. I think if you're looking at the foundation of how you go about measuring these teams up against each other, you've got to look at ratings. And I would back my own ratings to be slightly more efficient from a betting perspective than the UEFA coefficient numbers. I've got Fiorentina 0.33 goals better on neutral territory. So yeah, that probably signposts where I'm going with my bets too.
Yeah, we've got a bit of head-to-head action going on with RJ and Will when it comes to the European finals this week. Just forget the prices. Who's going to lift the trophy, Steve?
Oh, this is actually a really hard one. I think, if we look at the finals this year, we've had a big dog come through with Atalanta, haven't we, against Leverkusen. We've just recorded the Champions League show. I think Real Madrid will win that trophy. So this one, maybe this can go extra time penalties, something like that. I'm going to go with my gut feeling here. I actually think Olympiakos might lift it. It goes against a lot of logic. It goes against a lot of the metrics and the quality. But something tells me they might go close.
I'm guessing that Will White Esquire has never had a bet based on his gut feeling. Who do you think's going to lift
You're
the
so
trophy?
right.
Will?
You're so wrong. You're so wrong, Dan. I know my yeah. I know my caricature on this show is the ratings guy, but it's actually not where I started off in betting. That's for sure. Yeah, I like Fiorentina ratings. I like Fiorentina of quality of team, and maybe there's some mythical thing about Olympiakos in Athens, but I like Fiorentina.
Yeah, Will's been very bullish on the shows this week. We like the new Will. RJ, who's going to lift the trophy?
Olympiakos. They've yet to fail to score, quote unquote, at home in this competition, and I don't expect that to stop here in the final. So yeah, I'll take Olympiakos at plus 115.
We'll get some picks in a sec. Let's just talk about all the major markets as we go. Money line first up: Olympiakos Fiorentina. Olympiakos are plus 220 now. Fiorentina plus 140. The draw in the 90 minutes is plus 225. RJ has been hammering this point about home field advantage. Will is right to point out that it's not exactly the home, is it? This is at the AK Arena, which is obviously one of Olympiakos' rivals, but we're certainly in the same ballpark. I mean, in terms of the percentage that you would add to Olympiakos' chances, Will, I mean, it must count for something that this game is being played in Greece and very close to where they are based.
I've tried to think about it.
That's a no.
I don't know. I'm quite open-minded and contrarian by nature. My current answer to how much is it worth is not much, but I could be persuaded otherwise potentially. But it's a fairly unique scenario and potentially a factor actually where field-based bettors can gain an edge and gain an advantage. It's hard to model what this number should be, and so if you've got a deep understanding of Greek football and you feel like it will benefit Olympiakos, that could be a source of alpha for you. But if I really try and simulate what it feels like for the Olympiakos players playing in AK Athens home ground, I think it's going to bring a lot of emotion to them, but some of that emotion might be detrimental to their performance. I don't really know what the answer is, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, certainly from a moneyline point of view, whether there is going to be more money for Olympiakos. There has been just a little bit since I put the running order together. Steve, 3 different coaches for Olympiakos this season, fairly chaotic earlier this campaign, but we know that Jose Mendilibar is a very good coach, and he's a coach that's got European pedigree, having won the Europa League with Sevilla last term. Does that count for anything for Olympiakos? I'm trying to get some ticks in the right Olympiakos boxes here.
Yeah, look, he's won a trophy last year with them, and he's brought that momentum. I think he was quoted in saying that he's glad that Sevilla actually sacked him now, so he's had this opportunity with Olympiakos. It's been a messy. I mean, it was almost similar with Sevilla, wasn't it? They were like quite a messy campaign, and they managed to get them over the line unexpectedly. Yeah, they're home advantage. Well, I say home advantage. They're in their own city, aren't they? Which I think will help them. Now, in terms of the money line, this is where I bring up my smart suit out again, because I quite like the tie. Tie in 90 minutes is what I would go with in terms of the three outcomes. And that's the way I see it. I've just got a feeling there's not going to be an awful lot between the two teams.
RJ, who's had the easiest run to the final? I looked at this and I thought that the standout performance for me has to be Olympiakos beating Aston Villa, because Villa were the favourites from the get-go. They were a team that we were on, that we latched onto and we wanted to win. I mean, a 6-2 aggregate win over Villa is standout for me. Is that right? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think Olympiakos faced tougher competition, right? They dropped from the Europa League down to the Conference League. They've had to adapt to managerial changes, as you've alluded to. Fiorentina has been, consistent. I think they're the highest scoring team in this tournament, 25 goals. So, but they've also, they snuck through against Maccabi Haifa 5-4 in aggregate, and barely snuck through Club Brugge in the semis. So. I think for me, it's Olympiakos just because of what they've had to deal with so far through this season.
Anything team news-wise that anybody wants to mention here? I looked at the teams that UEFA have put up there, but I couldn't really work out if there was anything massively significant. RJ, you're usually across these things. Anything that you want to pull out?
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I'd mention specifically for Olympiakos is Francisco Ortega, the left back. He's pretty much in a race against time to get fit for this match. Not quite sure at this point if he will be playing or be fit to play. So that could be certainly impactful for Olympiakos on the back. And then if he's not available, Omar Richards will be likely the replacement for him. I think he's on loan or heading to Forest, if I'm not mistaken, Nottingham Forest. But he played over the weekend. But the left back situation for Olympiakos is a little bit of a question at this moment. And I think Fiorentina arguably pretty healthy.
Anyone else team news
It's not
wise?
really team news, but this just feels like it's like an Iberian Peninsula versus Argentina kind of showdown. To me, you've got Daniel Podence, you've got Iborra or Horta, if Horta starts instead of Iborra, and Chiquinho at Olympiakos, and David Carmo as well, I guess, if he starts. And then on Fiorentina side, you've got Beltran and Gonzalez. So that's what the vibe is, I think, in terms of players.
Let's get some picks. Steve has already suggested that a moneyline lean might be on the tie, the draw, but we've got some official plays from RJ and from Will. Will, you can go first. You are siding with the Serie A side.
Yeah, I like Fiorentina minus a quarter here. It was minus 105. It's ticked up to minus 103. I think they're the better team. I think that's evidenced by the pre-tournament, or at least when Olympiakos dropped down, outright prices plus 700 Fiorentina and plus 5,000 Olympiakos. Yes, Olympiakos have improved since those prices were released. They've found some stability with Mendilibar. But at the end of the day, I've got to trust my ratings here. It's the foundation of what I do. And if my ratings say Fiorentina are 0.33 goals better, that shows that there's some value on the minus a quarter Fiorentina. I actually think the most impressive tie of this tournament so far was Fiorentina's performance against Club Brugge, not Olympiakos' performance against Aston Villa. Olympiakos were impressive versus Villa, but they only very narrowly won the XG battle, despite the 6-2 aggregate score, and they lost the shot battle comprehensively 32-17, whereas Fiorentina versus Club Brugge, a very good Club Brugge team, may I add. That second leg performance in particular, away from home, winning the XG battle 2.52 to 0.21, 21 shots to 4 big chances to 0. That, to me, is the most impressive performance of the tournament so far. They weren't particularly impressive in the quarter-final versus Pilsen, nor the round of 16 versus Maccabi Haifa. Potentially at that point, they were more focused on Serie A, so maybe I'll give them a bit of a pass there. And we can't forget Olympiakos at the same time in the round of 16 were struggling with their own Israeli opponents, Maccabi Tel Aviv. We thank the Lord that they came through that tie because Steve and I were both on them. But yeah, I do think the Greek league is on an uptrend, and I think Steve did well to identify that early. I still think that point holds, but at the end of the day, this is a quite good Serie A team. I'm not sure exactly where they are off the top of my head in terms of my Serie A rating, somewhere around 7, I think. 7th best team in Serie A. It's a Serie A team against a Greek team, and I think we'd all agree that Serie A is the stronger domestic league. And I look at the two starting 11s, and for me, there's more quality and more potential upside in this Fiorentina team. It's
so the bet is
Fiorentina minus a quarter at minus 103 is the current price there.
That's the play from Will, and just to add to what we were saying about their schedule, they're involved in the Coppa Italia, weren't they, all the way through to the semi-final as well? So their schedule was fairly heavy over the course of the spring. RJ, you've gone elsewhere with this one. We've already heard that you like Olympiakos. What is the play?
Yeah, so I will be on draw no bet. Right, so if it's a push, the wager is returned to better. So plus 123 at this current moment. I talked a little bit about the history between Olympiakos and, the first Greek club to potentially win a senior title. We talked that Fiorentina was here, overcoming last year's heartbreak. To add to that, I think the biggest factor in this match, specifically for Olympiakos, is Ayoub El-Kaabi, right? The top scorer in this competition. He's been pivotal domestically and in this tournament for this team. He scored both times against Aston Villa. It'll be interesting how he lines up at this point against the Fiorentina defense. Probably Nikola Milenkovic, right, the Serbian defenseman for Fiorentina in the back. I think he's going to be a big impact for this team. I think Olympiakos is going to try to leverage the, call it near home advantage. And, I think like the match against Aston Villa, right, I think Fiorentina will probably dominate possession, right? I think it's just going to be about how it can El-Kaabi, basically. He's probably the guy that, anytime goal scorer, if you're looking for something there, would be the play. Can he consistently deliver against this team? Mandela Bar, has turned this club around. They're very solid defensively. I think it's just they're too reliant on one player, which could cost them in this position, to be fair. But I do like them. I like them against Aston Villa. I like them here. You got Bellotti on the other side, and Fiorentina on loan from Roma. I think in March the sporting director for Fiorentina passed away, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, Joe Barone. So that's something that they've talked about internally that they want to do it. They're, anytime a team has something that they're, anything they can add on for their motivation, it's always something to be leery of. But I'm sticking with my guns here. Statistical. I'm not a guy who bases wagers on gut. But in this case, I think because Olympiakos has that near home advantage. Streets are shut down, schools are shut down. I think food deliveries are going to be to a minimum. They're really taking this seriously. Security is at an all-time high because, they had a Greek Cup final over the weekend. There was no fans. So tough place, no quote unquote. And Olympiakos draw no bet plus 123. I'm feeling pretty comfortable about here.
Let's talk about some goals markets, shall we? We have got plays here, over and under 2.5, over 2.5 goals plus 125, under minus 157. Olympiakos have been an overs team. Fiorentina have been a bit of an unders team in the competition. Will, any goal line thoughts from you before we get some picks from Stephen and RJ here? The Asian line, he said at 2.25. That seems in keeping with the European final to me. Does that seem right?
I think the line's about right. There's not much we can really garner from the two previous finals in this competition. One went over, one went under. There's not much to take from that. And I think the current line of 2.25 is just reflective of the fact it's a European final. So yeah, about right for me.
Both teams to score is where we're going to focus now because the boys have got plays here. Yes, minus 109. No, minus 121. So it's almost each of two here. The stats would suggest the market is about right. But let's get some opinion from Steve and RJ. Steve, which way are you going for both teams to score market?
Both teams score, yes, for me, Dan. Minus 109, I think it is. And, look, I played the same bet in the Europa League final. Did the hard part, didn't we? And Atalanta got on the board, but Leverkusen didn't. I always like to have the 1-1 draw covered in any final, really, domestic or international, whatever, because I do believe, that's my prediction for the game in 90 minutes, 1-1. But I do think this is more chance of going over than under, to be honest, because if we look at both teams, they're not really that secure defensively for me. Let's take Fiorentina, for example. Even domestically, they're in the bottom half for XGA. I think Will's mentioned this before, Daniele's mentioned it before when we talked about them. They're a sort of team who have a knack of overachieving their metrics at both ends of the field, especially defensively. 10 goals over achievement in Serie A. A lot of that is down to this goalkeeper, Pietro Terracciano, who, he's a veteran, really. He's nearly as old as me. So he's had a great year.
How old's that?
He is now 34 years old. Which, look, for a goalkeeper, it's not that old, I suppose, is it? Some might say they come into their prime, don't they, in their 30s, I suppose. But look, he's had a very good year. Can he keep saving them? Well, maybe he can, because that tends to happen in seasons, doesn't it? But look, BTTS, yes, for me. Olympiakos, if you look at their run since the playoff round, it was crazy stuff against Maccabi Tel Aviv. They are still very much in my good books for that. They're my Greek side, aren't they, now, Olympiakos? But, since then it was crazy stuff. They beat Villa to 0, but I don't know how. Villa should have scored in that game. So I don't really trust the Olympiakos defence, but I do trust their offence. Like RJ said at the top of the show, when was the last time they didn't actually score a goal in this competition? It's been a while, hasn't it? They usually find a way to get on the score sheet. Fiorentina, I don't think you can actually take too much notice of their run. They have had quite an easy run to this final, apart from Club Brugge, really. But whenever they've played someone decent, they've tended to concede. I just don't really trust either defence. I think the attackers, there's enough quality on both sides for. I actually thought BTTS would be a bit shorter here, Dan. I thought it'd be like -130, even -140. So I'm happy to strike here. Quite a confident play for me in this final.
And RJ, you're going to expand it out to a big price play in the final here, because BTTS, yes, is only part of your wager here.
Yeah, so it's a combo wager. Both teams to score yes, and Olympiakos to win in 90 minutes at a half a unit. It's +575. It's a bold play. I do think both sides, as Steve alluded to, have defensive liabilities. Originally when I looked at this, to be honest, I was looking at the under 2.25, and it felt like it was a bit of a trap. I think I do expect this to be somewhat cautious of a start. Maybe first half could be pretty quiet in terms of goals, but I expect things, and even the stats I saw, I think 60-70% of both these teams' second half matches saw the most goals per match compared to the first half. So, I think it depends too on if Ortega for Olympiakos is in, or if it's Omar Richards. I think if it's Richards, that's even a bigger liability for this Olympiakos side, and that bodes well for both teams to score. And with the passion that Fiorentina have, for the reasons I've alluded to earlier, I think both teams to score is a very good looking play, in my opinion. Can Olympiakos secure the win in 90 minutes would be the bigger question mark, but I like them to eventually win here, as I've alluded to with draw no bet. So I think at half unit at that price, there's a ton of value there, and what I think could be a very realistic outcome.
Yeah, and it's almost like last year's final. Okay, it was West Ham against Fiorentina, but all the goals in the second half there, with West Ham securing success very, very late on. That would do for this play in Olympiakos' favour, of course, a 2-1 win for West Ham. Then we've got some first goal scorer and shots on target plays as well for you. Will, you were looking at Lucas Beltran to score at any time, but potentially it's just gone a little bit too short.
Yeah, Lucas Beltran, a player that really catches my eye, a player that I really like, and I think he's very influential in this Fiorentina team. Opening line was +375 on his anytime goal scorer. It's been cut significantly since, so I think I'd avoid at these current prices, and I'd be looking for, at the very least, +250. But maybe that's kind of fair value, and I'd be needing +300-ish for it to be have enough meat on the bone there. Is he the Fiorentina penalty taker? I think he is. He took their decisive penalty versus Club Brugge in the last round, and Nico Gonzalez was on the pitch then. So I think he has become Fiorentina's penalty taker, and obviously that's huge when it comes to anytime goal scorer and the shots on target market as well. And that is a play that I am going to make an official play plus 137. That's Lucas Beltran of Fiorentina to have over 0.5 shots on target. His stats in Serie A are quite low, 0.39 shots on target per 90. But they're much higher in the Conference League this season, 0.73 shots on target per 90, which is more than enough to justify his plus 137 price. He's really the main creative force at Fiorentina, not really a goal scorer or even really a shot taker. But the fact that he's probably their penalty taker and the fact that it's a Conference League final that's likely to be tight, could be decided in the fine margins, I think plus 137 is a spot of value. So that's my first pick in the player prop markets.
Yeah, we've got another one from Will as well when it comes to shot on target market. Let's just go back to the anytime goal scorer market. Incidentally, I think you're right with the penalties because Gonzalez missed a couple this season. The market for anytime goal scorer looks like this. El Arabi plus 245, probably won't start. El Kaabi certainly will, plus 255 for Tunis, plus 410. Podence 410, and then Beltran we think around about 220 at the minute, with Belotti 220, Gonzalez 240 for Fiorentina, and Zola is also quoted towards the top of the market but probably won't start. Steve, you do have a pick in the anytime goal scorer betting.
Yes, and I think this will be quite a popular pick on the night. I'm expecting a lot of people to be betting or tipping Ayoub Al-Kaabi to score any time here. It's the price just stands out. It's too big. Plus 255 for a man who comes alive in this competition, really. If we look at his his record this season is really, really, really impressive in the Conference League. 10 goals in 8 appearances. He even scored 5 in 10 Europa League games this season, including qualifying. So, even domestically, he's had a strong season, hasn't he, really? He scores a goal every other game. I think he's a weapon that they're going to use. He's very, very effective against some. Villa couldn't handle him that well, and like I say, he comes alive in this competition. And I expected him to be, I don't know, plus 190, plus 200 at tops, absolute tops. I think actually there's good value on a lot of goal scorers here. To be honest with you, I think that obviously it's. Goal scorer prices are priced up on depending who's the favourite, what the over-under goal line is, and sometimes in these situations it can pay to look at the individual player rather than the actual goal lines and stuff like that. So El Kaabi stands out to me as the big threat for Olympiakos. If they do get on the score sheet in the final, he's probably the most likely individual. So plus 255 for me, Dan.
Yeah, he's had a standout season. Strange one. He didn't make the Morocco squad for the last World Cup, played in the previous World Cup back in 2018, but his numbers off the charts this campaign, as Steve has pointed out, plus 255 to score at any time. We like Beltran on the shot on target market over 0.5, and Will, you put a late one into the WhatsApp group last night. You've got another Fiorentina player that you think could pay dividends in this particular market. This is a big price. Yeah,
Cristiano Biraghi, the Fiorentina captain, plays at left back, and Italiano is kind of focused on the attacking positioning strategically with this new iteration of the Fiorentina team. He's averaging 0.22 shots on target per 90 in the Conference League this season, similar in Serie A. And that's kind of already looking at a smidgen of value at the plus 450 that he's currently quoted at. However, what really caught my eye was the fact that he's taking 1.1 shots per 90 in Serie A, in the Conference League this season. And that's an extremely low 20% shots on target to shots ratio. Perhaps that's to be expected, given that most of his shots come from outside of the box. He is a left back after all. But there is some potential upside there, and there's certainly room for that ratio to improve. Like I said, he's the captain. He also takes free kicks for Fiorentina as well. And in a big game like this, it wouldn't surprise me at a big price for Cristiano Biraghi to get a shot on target. So, overall, I think we're slightly leaning towards there being a higher goal expectancy than the market believes here. And so I think it's natural for us to look to find value in the goal scorer and shots on target market, given that we expect the game to be slightly more open than the market's expecting.
Yes, an interesting one, isn't it? That because over the course of the last half an hour, as we've been talking, we've majored on the sort of both teams to score and the goal scorers and shots on target, and maybe starting to believe that this game might go overs, even though the line is fairly short when it comes to the over and under market. When it comes to goals, let's get the best bets before we wrap things up from the boys. RJ, what is your best play on the Conference League final? This is 3 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, of course. What's your best bet?
Yeah, I like Olympiakos draw no bet at plus 123.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I like Olympiakos. I'm very much in the Greek camp here. Steve?
You've not boxed it, have you, Dan, there?
I've not boxed it.
Oh,
I've
boy.
not boxed anything for a long time. I've not jinxed anything and I never did anyway. That was just Nigel. Just bullying me as usual.
Just before I give the best bet, I do want to give a shout out to this actual show over the Conference League and Europa League. We are in profit. Big thanks to Will's 25-1 pick on Atalanta to win Europa League. But actually, in terms of the matches, it's the Conference League which we've done our best on all year. I think we're over +7 units on the Conference League matches themselves. So this has been a good competition for us. It'd be fitting if we do finish with some winners one way or the other. My best bet has got to be both teams score yes, -109.
Will,
I think
what's
I'm
your
going to
best
go
play?
with Bragi, actually, plus 450 shot on target. The biggest price, but just got a feeling.
That is a big play. RJ's got a big play for us as well. This is going to be an interesting final. Lots of different opinions on this one because two sides, certainly Olympiakos at least, that obviously haven't got the European pedigree. Fiorentina off the back of that defeat last season to West Ham. Can they get it right? It'll be fascinating to find out. That wraps up Betting Weekly Extra Time Europa Conference League edition. Many thanks to Steve, Will and RJ. You can stay up to date with all of the content from the Betting Weekly team on our YouTube channel, of course. And don't forget that we've got our Champions League final preview out as well. That is covered. Plenty of bets from all of our handicappers, Steve, RJ and Will on that one. For the Conference League, though, for now, it is goodbye.